Subscribe to AmpCode and ring the notification bell to get the latest content.
Hello and welcome back. So in this lecture, let's talk about and understand the ETL process in data engineering, which is a pretty vital step and also often asked in every data engineering interview. So without further ado, let's get into it. So basically, let's start with what really is a ETL. So ETL will stands for three processes: the extraction, transformation and the loading. And it is a process used majorly in data warehousing for extracting the data from various sources. So let's imagine you have a data driven organization which is generating petabytes of data every day, but that data could be coming from many other sources. That data could be coming from the transactional relational database. The data could be coming from the website of the organization as a unstructured format and in real time. And the data also could be coming from any IoT devices, or else it could be coming from log files, and there could be like S3 bucket, there could be like cloud storage like the S3 buckets which is stored on cloud. And this data and all this data should be unified. So basically, the first thing is you have to integrate all these sources and extract the data from these multiple sources, and then the next step is the transformation. So since the format of all these data types will be different, and to orchestrate your data solution, you may need to transform the data to the required format, because you can only get the meaning out of your data when you have the data in the right format. So let's say if you have some IoT devices which is generating the data on a regular basis or maybe in a real time, but if that data has any garbage values, you have to clean that using some tools to transform the data into the required shape. So your output would be only the required fields you need in your data set, and then you can load that data into a unified data solution like a data lake or a data warehouse. But before that, you have to make sure that you are understanding all these processes correctly, and this extract, transform and load are integrated with each other, and you're using the right tools and technologies for this solution. So let's talk about one by one all the processes. So these ETL processes are nothing but very iterative processes. So once we have and very iterative processes, that is like repeated whenever you got the new data. So your data could be coming in a real time, your data could be coming in the batch way. So according to that, you have to run your ETL pipeline and schedule it according to the type of data source that you have. So now let's talk about how this process works under the hood. So as you can see in this figure, let's try to understand how this extract, transform and load works under the hood hand in hand. So as you can see, let's say if your organization has the three sources, data sources from where the data is coming at a higher velocity. So let's say that you have the RDBMS here. So RDBMS is nothing but the relational database. So which means that the data is present in the structured format like the tables present in the rows and columns. Then we got the SQL Server, which is another like RDBMS, and it's stored in structured data. So the RDBMS could be like the Oracle database or the PostgreSQL, nothing matter. But RDBMS and SQL Server are pretty similar to each other. Then we have the flat files, which is stored in another data storage solution. So all this data will come, and you have to unify the data and extract the data and put it in the staging area. So the main thing of staging area is you have to dump all this data and unify it in the staging area, because if you directly go into the data warehouse, then some data could be corrupted and the rollback will not be much easier. So that's why let's unify the data and transform it. So there comes the transformation phase in the picture. Transformation will transform your data to the required shape and only get the necessary data, because it will save a lot of time in the loading phase. So you will only get the data that you need and not the garbage values and all. You can just simply put several transformation that we are going to see in the subsequent topic, and then you can use the load method. So load is nothing but integration phase between the data warehouse and the staging area. So you have to integrate that and load the data from the staging area into the appropriate data solution. So in this case we have the data warehouse, but you can also dump it into the data lake, and it could be utilized in the further data pipeline. So data pipeline is nothing but when you have to extract the meaning out of your data. So you can build several reports as well as views. So let's say if you are a data analyst and you want to build a dashboard, an interactive dashboard on top of your data warehouse, so you can easily do that, because in data warehouse you have the fixed schema. So on top of it, using the JDBC or ODBC connectors, you can build a Power BI dashboard, and also you can also build the Hive view or the Hive table, so that the business users and users will directly query on top of that, or else data scientists can directly get that data and draw some meaning out of it. So it's totally on the consumer side. So let's talk about this extraction, transformation and loading in detail. Okay, so let's talk about the extraction phase first. So as we already talked about that, this is the first step of the ETL process. So let me tell you one thing, that there are many softwares, or we can say tools and technologies, that are present in the market which does all the ETL processes for you. So there is like the Informatica, the Talent as well as Alteryx, which will give you all the capabilities of the ETL processes, and you don't have to worry about the integration phase, because it will handle it in one technology itself. So that is just the one thing. That is just the one thing that you keep in mind. Now if you talk about the extraction, in this step the data is coming from the various source system, which is extracted and it can be present in the various formats that we already talked about. But it is very important to extract the data from various source system and store it into the staging area first, because as we already talked about that, if you do not store it and directly dump that into the data warehouse, the data could be in corrupted phase. So some of the sources can have the corrupted data, and it will impact the whole data platform, or we can say the data warehouse. So because of that, the rollbacks will be very more difficult. So instead of that, let's have the data in the staging area first, where you can do all sorts of transformation on top of it. So let's talk about the transformation now. So as we already know that this is like the second step of our ETL process, which is transformation. So as the name suggests, in here we will have some set of rules or functions which can be applied on top of the extracted data and convert it into the single standard format. Because many data storage solution, like if you want to dump that into a data warehouse, it will have some integrity and need only the fixed or the structured schema, not fully structured, but it can only handle the structured or in some cases semi-structured data. So according to that, if your data is coming from unstructured source, then you have to convert it and clean it as per the standards of the data warehouse. So there are like many operations of transformation. Let's talk about them now. So transformation can be done in various tools. You can use pandas, you can use pyspark, which we already talked about, and also you can use Hadoop. And there are several tools in the Hadoop ecosystem which can able to transform the data, like the pig, you have got the Hive, and as we already know that Spark is pretty popular in the data community already. So we got a filter operation. So if you want to filter on top of your data, so which means that you only need some specific columns, and let's say if you only need the data from the previous year, then you can use all sorts of filter operations on top of it. You can use the cleaning operations. So if you want to get some pattern from a complex unstructured data, then you can use that. Then you can use the cleaning operations, you can use the regex replace operations and get the required output from any sensor input maybe. Then you got the join operations. So let's say if your data is coming from various tables present in the relational databases, then you can use the join operations. So you can build all sorts of different pyspark data frame on top of the data and then join them to get the unified output at the end. Then you can do all sorts of splitting and sorting operation to shuffle that data around to get you in the required format. So basically all this transformation will result in the cleaned output which you can dump in the next phase, which is like the loading phase. So let's talk about the loading phase now. So as you already know that it will be the last and final step of the ETL process, which is loading. So in this step, all we can do is we can dump the transform data into the data warehouse. So I mentioned data warehouse here, but it could be a data lake house or data lake or the lake house as well, as per the data solution that you have. So sometimes the data is updated by loading into the data warehouse very frequently, but sometimes it can be done after longer regular intervals. So if you want to have the data in real time, that also can do using the ETL process, and it totally depends on what type of operations and what type of use case that you're handling and what is the criticality of your data. So if you need the real-time analytics, then your data would be frequently in real time loaded into the data warehouse. But if you have like the balance sheet reconciliation and all sorts of financial analysis on top of it, which requires the historical information, then you can do maybe a daily or weekly load to able to analyze the data further. Then the rate of the period of loading will depends on the requirements, and it will vary on the system to system. So totally depends on your use case. So this is how you can use different sorts of data solution as per your use. So you can use maybe the data warehouse, you can use maybe the lake house or the data lake. We have seen all sorts of comparison earlier in this series. So if you have any difficulties, you can let me know in the comments and we can discuss it further, or maybe have an extra lecture on top of it. So I hope you understood the ETL process. So we'll also discuss some of the tools that are available in the market in the next lecture as well to handle the ETL processes. So I'll see you in the next one.
So that's it for today. I'll see you in the next lecture.